Hello, everybody. Welcome to our very first episode of The Last of Us Aftershow. We've got John, Rob, Chris, Taylor, myself, Ray. We're all here to talk about this series on HBO, and then later on talk to you guys in the super chats. Hope you're all doing well, guys. How are you all doing?
Good.
Great.
I like that we are in this room.
Yeah.
I don't know why. It feels. I mean,
Like
we're
the
not
family room.
It's the family room. We've gathered as a family to talk about this family-friendly show.
Meanwhile,
The whole of family.
This seems like a good environment to talk about the show, I guess. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about this episode of The Last of Us for a couple of minutes, and then we're going to spend the vast majority of our time here today taking your comments and questions about the show, your observations, your theories, your comments, your critiques. And that's what we're really going to do, is let you guys take the lead on this. But, I mean, let's get things going. We talked about the show on this morning's John Campea Show, in a non-spoilery way. I might change my mind later on, but right now I think this is the second best series debut I've ever seen. Again, I'm not saying it's going to be the second best series I've ever seen, but as far as a series debut, I liked it even more than House of the Dragon's debut, and I loved that. I'm not saying it's going to be as good as House of the Dragon by the time it's done, but I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was the perfect mix and blend of being 100% shot by shot accurate to the game, and yet there were times that they needed to adapt and do things differently, and when they did, it absolutely elevated it a lot. I mean, I just loved it. Chris, you were tickled with this as well, were you not?
Yeah. Oh, I love how they did this. I think the execution was wonderful. Frame for frame, we've got that whole truck scene, which was so well done.
That was crazy.
And by we talked about this on the main show a little bit, by taking those moments though, and still having that same kind of setup, it still gives you the experience you have when you do play the game of experiencing this kind of, mass chaos firsthand, which I was really worried about going into, honestly. You feel so connected to Joel and to Ellie because you play as them. And I was wondering how they were going to do that for you still with like this theatrical retelling of it. And I think they really, really nail it. And by fleshing out some of these other characters too, taking those NPCs and making them have actual personalities and relationships with these characters, it really, really raises the stakes and just fleshes out this environment in such a good way. I love it.
Rob, favorite part of the episode?
ooh, you know what? The whole opening with his daughter.
Oh.
I mean, only because I was so tense during that entire opening sequence. The tension, the way they ratcheted up the tension, and there was something about that bucolic neighborhood that they lived in, and how it was kind of empty, like you knew stuff was going down. And since this is a spoiler discussion, I have to say, my favorite shot, John, it was a single shot where you see his daughter in the foreground and the old woman in the background. And she's going...
Out of focus. Just
and
a little movements.
It was so creepy because it's about to go down and you're waiting for what exactly is going to happen, even though if you've watched, I guess you knew it wasn't going to go down until later, but still, that was so creepy. And it's a single shot. Didn't rely on editing, didn't rely on camera movement. It was a single composed shot, and it told you everything that you needed to know.
As a follow-up to that shot, too, Ray will appreciate this. As a follow-up to that shot as well, a few minutes later, she's leaving, and she sees the dog looking at the grandma.
Oh,
Give the dog an Emmy.
And the dog is just still. Just looking at her like...
Just staring. Now, Ray is actually he's like me. He's very much a dog guy. So, Ray, what did you think about the dog's performance?
Well, that dog part, it's like it almost seemed like it was staring at nothing.
Yes.
Like it didn't recognize that person anymore. I was going to like this episode because I'm a big natural disaster movie guy. And sometimes it's not even when the disaster happens in those movies. It's the moments before, the build up. That's what I really like about this episode with the planes taking off. And something's going down, the news reports, the little chatters and whispers. Like you can feel the rumbling. And that's the same thing I get from like natural disaster movies. So that was like my favorite part. All the way up. Now, when we get to the zombies, we'll see if I could stick with this show. Because I think all the stuff that I really like just happened. So, but you know what? I'm just because I'm not really a zombie guy.
Right.
So like, unless there's like more to it that like I could find value in watching, I really like this first episode. We'll see, but it was good. All the effects, like the plane going down, was awesome. I have those dreams all the time, so to see it on TV is great. What Rob mentioned, the shot, that had to be the moment of the show for me too. That's the moment I turned off the TV at night last night, where I said I need to watch this in the daytime because nothing good's gonna happen after this.
I mean, that's the part that Anne freaked out the most too. Like I was watching with Anne, and like and it was the subtlety of it. Like if the shot was in the background, you saw the grandmother going,
Yeah.
There was something just about the slight moving of the heads, and like
She had
that just
jazz
made
hands.
So, what's that?
She had jazz hands.
Electric boogaloo.
We're coming. No, it just the subtlety of it made it so much more creepy.
Yeah.
But you know, Rob, I'm interested in this because you and I haven't talked about this.
No.
But during the show today, you said there was a couple of small elements in the second part of the show that might have not sat as well with you. What were those?
Okay, the two things that I thought, and this is a total directorial thing, the difference between, I thought it was a little murky in terms of the difference between Fedra and the Fireflies and who was doing what. It just was a little, I mean, I understood it, so I was looking for the way it was sort of set up. I think they could have leaned into that, because it was a little nebulous, because you saw Joel making a deal with a Fedra officer, then he was working for who and on a tour of, Tess. What was happening there? I just thought it wasn't as, this is just a directorial thing that for me, I thought it was a little bit, I wanted them to delve into that difference a little bit more, like the hierarchy between the two, like why were they fight? I mean, I know why they were fighting, but just to show that difference a little bit more, to define it, because you get into Boston, they do such a great, I call it the Schindler's List scene because of instead of seeing a pink jacket, you see the green shoes.
Which I thought,
oh God. It was so hard. That whole thing was so heartbreaking. This is something in terms of the direction that I love, like that one shot. The other shot that I loved was when the indicator turned red, when they tested the kid, and it just goes ding.
Even that was out of focus. It was just in the background.
But you saw it, and I was just like, oh. I mean, you knew it was coming. Mm-hmm. But when it happens, it was. And the way the woman, the actress that played the guard in that moment, that was sitting down, and you knew, like you pointed out earlier today, that she'd done this 100 times before, and she was doing what she could to make the kid comfortable, knowing that this was the last moments of life, and she was showing compassion, and all you saw was when she turned her head a little bit and saw the indicator.
Just for a brief split second of distress. And then, nope, we're going to make this kid feel like everything's okay. Mm-hmm. And even held the kid's hand. And
the only other thing that I thought was different, and I thought it was different than the game, was when they show you that our stalwart heroine has been bitten, is infected. Because in the game, they really make a meal of that. But in this, it was really, like, at first, I actually went back and watched it again because it's very quick, and I thought that they should have leaned more heavily into, if you've never played the game and you saw that she was bitten and she doesn't really explain, it just goes by very fast. And I was wondering, because Elizabeth was a little confused, like, well, wait a minute, is she infected or not? And I had to explain, yes, but she's immune, and that's kind of what. And in the game.
But I would say this. In a traditional show, in a normal show, I think we're not supposed to have all those answers yet. Mm-hmm. Like shows will often set up a little crumb of information and make us go, wait, what?
But in the game, it's a big deal. Like they make sure.
But they can still make it a big deal later on.
Flat out say in that moment,
no,
I'm immune. It's just a.
Yeah,
I would have turned by now, and it's the don't bullshit me that's fresh.
No, it's true, but I just thought it was a little quick, and it was a little confusing to Elizabeth, and I thought that was an interesting, because in the game, I remember thinking, wow, this is really, okay, it's laid out, and now we're off to the races, and I thought, these were just two little, like I told you, they were just little things. Right. One thing I do want to mention that I absolutely loved, when the show started in 1968, and we see that
opening stuff was so good.
It was interesting because Craig Mazin as a director was drawing on, you know what that really reminded me of? The opening of I Am Legend with Emma Thompson.
Yep.
And
So you found a cure for cancer?
yeah, and it was that whole thing. It was played out, and I always loved that opening. And she's all smiling, like yes. And the way they played it was kind of the reverse of that in this. When the doctor starts explaining, well, if temperature went up a little, I mean, it was leaning into the idea of global warming, but it gave you a very credible reason why this fungal infection came about.
Well, here's the thing that freaked me out about that is you can find on YouTube. Go on YouTube and look up ant zombies.
Right.
Oh yeah.
It's a real thing.
Oh, and that's where
it's freaky as hell.
Well, Druckmann talks about that he watched this. I'm convinced that a lot of TV writers watch this same nature documentary. He talked about, it's like in 2008, that's where he got the idea for the whole fungal infection.
I remember seeing it.
There's a movie called The Girl with All the Gifts.
Yep.
That also has
Fabulous
but that came out after the game first came out, the book and then the movie. So that person clearly read that. And then the Mycellular Network, they even use it on Star Trek Discovery about fungus. So there's a whole generation of game and TV writers that clearly saw the documentary you're talking about because it is terrifying.
Yeah.
And what happens is you see these things sprouting out of the heads of ants. You know, this is all the clickers, which you haven't seen yet. It's all real. It's all based on real science. But I love that they leaned into it and gave us a credible reason why. And you don't have to address it again. They addressed it. And I thought that was a really cool addition.
Chris?
I was just going to say, it's the cordyceps virus. Yeah. So if you just Google cordyceps, you'll not trust mushrooms ever again.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Because it's all, I love when sci-fi is based in a reality that is probable.
I like how you said a reality, not in reality.
Right.
A reality of just any kind of, like if the right parameters could create a situation like this, theoretically. That is my favorite kind of sci-fi, and it's being so well executed.
Yes. And also, I loved how that doctor was saying, like, you know, where does penicillin come from? And here's where our cures come from. But we really don't know how to stop an infection like this.
I just love
There's
it ends
nothing
with
we
him
can
saying,
do.
we lose. So, Jonathan, I wanted to ask you, like, what was your favorite part of the show?
My favorite part of the show was actually the subtleties of society starting to become unwoven. So in the kitchen scene in the morning, it's the birthday scene, and you hear on the radio there's an outbreak of like
There's just
disturbance
unrest
in Jakarta.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's on the other side of the globe, and then as her day goes on, things are getting closer and closer to Austin, and then she goes to the watch store. And everything's fine, but by the time she leaves the watch store, everyone's off the streets. But she still doesn't really know why. Then she gets over to her neighbor's house, and that's when you see the old lady in the wheelchair. And then she's walking out, and she hears those jets fly over. And then she wakes up to like the helicopters and explosions. So it's just that gradual march of chaos where you're not like, oh my God, something's happening. It's happening right now. It's like, something's weird, you know?
Yeah.
You just that creeping eeriness of like, okay, now it's hit the fan. So that lead up honestly was my favorite of this episode.
It gave you a sense of how fast this thing is spreading too.
Yes.
Because it was only a few hours. It went from just the initial cops driving by in the beginning.
Yeah.
Or before the watch store, I think. And then when she goes to sleep at night and then wakes up in the middle of whatever time it was, now there's explosions and everything is gone.
Yep.
So imagine the rest of the world just, just one person getting this thing.
Yeah. And she's still kind of in a quiet neighborhood.
It's crazy.
If it wasn't for like, Joel tells his neighbor, get inside and lock the door.
Which she didn't do.
She did not listen and then spread to her. So yeah.
Yeah, and the area they live in looks like it's a little bit away from a big city
It's
sort
the
of area.
suburbs of Austin.
But it's still spread just as fast. And within those fields of like, it looked like.
Oh yeah. I mean, that one guy's house is on fire.
Yeah.
Planes are crashing. It just got, and then those people come crashing out of that movie theater. It just spiraled.
Like, can I bring up one more thing? When you talk about that kid, I never got the point you guys are saying it was heartbreaking. It wasn't until now I'm sitting down thinking about it where I do see the impact of that kid, because that kid probably saw his parents die or whatever happened, and he went to that place thinking he's going to be saved. He traveled. He was walking, thinking he found his, like, the place that's going to, keep him, and then they kill him. So, yeah. So I get it now. I get the impact of that scene. Because I didn't get it at first. I was like, it's just another kid that they probably
to
killed.
me, the brilliance of that scene was the fact that without talking about it, they let us as the audience understand the way the world is now.
Anybody.
And that was one of the things they did great in the show was they mastered in this first episode showing, not telling.
Yeah.
And they did it really, really well. Anyway, guys, we've been already going on for like 15 minutes about what we thought about. Of course, we talked about it on the John Campea Show earlier today. Let's now get over to the important part, which is you guys and what you guys have to think and say and ask about this episode, first episode of The Last of Us. So let's jump over to it right now. What do we got?
All right, so first we've got Peyton Null asking, will this contain spoilers for future episodes? So I think he's talking about like our show, today's show.
No, what I think they're asking is, because this is a game,
Yeah.
like we had a little bit of this with House of the Dragon, because even though we were doing open spoiler discussions of House of the Dragon, there were a lot of people who read the books and were openly talking about what happens in future episodes. That's a good question. You know what? I think, look, if you're watching an open spoiler discussion, you have to understand and be prepared that certain things might inadvertently get revealed about what is to come. But we will endeavor to not do that. I think everybody in this room knows what happens in the games, but we will endeavor not to do that. And we'll ask our viewers not to send in questions about something that happens much, 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 much later in the story.
Right.
But again, if you're watching a video that is clearly, open spoiler, you got to be prepared that some of that stuff might slip out. So we'll try our best, but who knows?
I'm telling you right now, I don't know anything in the game.
So Ray's safe.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like when we speculate about what's going to happen in a Marvel movie, though, right? Where it's, in this,
the
issue,
comic,
this
yeah,
happens
right.
this way. So it might just serve as a blueprint, too. We might be completely surprised by what happens in this show.
Right. But
whether or not
we
play.
do know the game.
Yeah.
So we will be careful. All right. What's next?
All right, Dance Productions is next. I am glad this doesn't feel like The Walking Dead.
Same.
Yeah, because Ray, I think you brought it up earlier too. I'm the same. I'm not really a zombie. There's a few zombie movies and stuff like that I really like, but I mean, a zombie movie's a zombie movie's a zombie movie. I mean, for the most part, you got a few examples like Shaun of the Dead and things like that are different. But I will agree. It did not feel like The Walking Dead. I mean, really, we only get a few minutes of the quote-unquote zombies in it anyway.
I mean, what's the last, just to go off a little bit, what was the last good zombie thing you've seen? Mine was the 30 Days of Night. That's the only, I don't think that was really a zombie movie, but they had the
no, that's a vampire movie.
Yeah, but they went after the people like zombies. I mean, I
Warm
don't know.
bodies.
Train to Busan.
Oh, yeah, Train to Busan.
Train to
was good.
Busan.
I mean, I think that there's a lot. Druckmann clearly drew upon, like, the whole opening is very similar with the daughter, is very similar to Dawn of the Dead, Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead with Sarah Polley when she comes back from the hospital and you're seeing people come in ambulances and you don't, it's like what Jonathan was saying, there's weird stuff going on, but she doesn't know it yet.
Right.
And then that thing, like I said, from I Am Legend. But a lot of this stuff does come from the original Dawn of the Dead, the whole collapse of civilization and the military. And like, I think Girl with All the Gifts is another great, it's a pretty great movie, a zombie movie and the way they show the military dealing with kids, because kids may or may not be immune.
Right.
And so there's a lot of things that they touch on, but what's really more interesting about The Last of Us, the game as well, is that it's really about a father and his proxy daughter trying to survive in a world where civilization is being stripped away piece by piece, and how do you retain that love and your humanity? And that's why I think people were so drawn to this story, because you have the zombie post-apocalyptic, you've got all that, but at its core, it's the story of these two characters, a father and a proxy daughter, that love one another, that want to do anything to survive.
Talking about that about another movie, right? We say the best kind of whatever movies are the ones that are actually about a human story.
Yeah.
And I can't remember which one we were just talking about that, but that is also The Last of Us. All right, we got a lot of questions, so let's keep moving here. What's next?
All right, Ryan Lohner writes, I'm not quite sure what he means by this, but hey, John, Hannah, how'd you like to come in for a day and steal the whole first episode? It's like in quotes. Like
Are you talking about an actor in the first scene?
Probably the daughter. What's the daughter's name? Real name in real life?
What's the name? What do they write?
Hannah? That's not... Her name is Sarah.
Oh no!
No,
What's
but
the
I
actress's
think
name?
it's like Nico.
The actress is Hannah Hayes.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, the
Oh,
girl.
yeah.
She did steal the show.
Or wait,
Oh, never mind.
Oh, how would you like to come in and steal the whole first episode?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
Like she
Yeah.
stole the show.
Yeah.
So
she did.
Joel's daughter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what's her name's daughter.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
was her one job, and
Tandy
she did it.
Tandy
Tandy
Newton's daughter.
Newton's daughter.
yeah, well, you
Yeah,
have
she
to
was
have
great.
a really strong emotional connection to Sarah because that is the thrust for the rest of the series. It's why Joel hasn't killed himself, is he's trying to live some sort of life for his daughter.
Well, yeah, you can't understand Joel
Without her.
unless you understand what he lost.
And they did a beautiful thing on the follow-up show, the Aftershow, talking about how you really need to see how different Sarah is from Ellie, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, if you don't know anything about the game, how shocking was that?
Anne was shocked.
Oh, and you know what?
Yeah,
I'm
shocked.
I'm seeing in the chat, John Hanna he was the actor in The Mummy. He was the professor in
Oh,
at
okay.
the beginning.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, no, a point of fact. He's the actor from Spartacus.
Yes, from Spartacus. And
My bad, y'all.
okay.
My bad.
yeah.
So
well, that's
whatever.
just what they're saying in the chat. But yeah, they're talking about John Hanna stealing the
Yeah,
show.
he was
That
great. The
goat,
way he's,
dude.
I love, yeah, I love him.
I put up a picture of him right now.
All right.
Nico Parker
What's
is
next?
the daughter.
Yeah.
That's
All
She's
right.
great, too.
Abel Leon writes, hey, John, what an intro to the show, just like the video game. It feels like they captured lightning in a bottle.
Again, it's perfect adaptation is knowing when to stick to the source material when it works and knowing when to make changes to elevate the source material. And this was one of the best examples. I said on Twitter earlier, I said we're only one episode in, and I can tell you right now that The Last of Us is the single greatest video game adaptation of all time. Now, somebody followed that up by asking me about my favorite animated show of all time, which is Arcane. And I said, well, Arcane, here's the thing about Arcane. It is my favorite anime show of all time, but I don't even know that I consider it a video game adaptation.
Yeah.
Because none of it is in the game.
Right.
Like they did not take the story from the game. Like whereas this is an actual adaptation, that is really more loosely based on characters from the game.
Yes.
So that's my thought. All right, what's next?
All right, Dance Production writes, all they had to do for me was nail that incoming spoiler, Sarah death scene, and I'm happy to report they did.
You were pointing that out, Chris. I mean, that's essential, right? Like getting that right is absolutely essential. Like, can we relate with Joel or empathize with Joel if we didn't see it like that?
Exactly. And to Rob's point, too, it's a story about him getting back to his humanity.
Yeah.
It's been completely ripped from him. She was his whole heart. And so now this story that they go on is how do you become or maintain your humanity, right? How do you become a more compassionate person when your life is like this?
Yeah, and
And
what
the-
you lost.
They really played with you too. The way she went and took money out of his drawer and the watch and all
And
that.
seeing her go over to the neighbors, like they invested in her.
Yeah.
So when she died, like more so than the game did.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so when she dies, we feel it more.
And she's so cute when she sits down and with the watch and gives it to her dad and says, "Well, I did steal some money to get it fixed." And
Yeah,
you
but you
really
wouldn't have done it.
You love her. You
Yeah.
just love her.
And they kept that line from the game, too. How'd you get this? Drugs. I sell
yeah,
hardcore
Yeah.
drugs.
No,
Yeah.
hardcore drugs. All right, what's next?
All right, so more to that point, Just a Sub 32 writes, hey, Filthy Crew, after playing the game several times, I thought I was ready for Sarah's death in the live action. I was wrong.
You know, it raises. I was talking to the crew before we started this stream. This show, I'm going to do an editorial video on this, but this show, this one episode has really raised the question to me is how much do spoilers actually matter? Because what you just said, that people who know this game and knew that kid was going to die, when the scene happened, it did not affect anybody any less. Like because I remember I was sitting beside Ann, who had never played the game, doesn't know the game, and all that kind of stuff. And I know that my emotional reaction to her death was every bit as strong as her emotional reaction to the thing.
Sure.
And again, I am not saying spoilers don't matter. I'm just saying it makes us ask the question. So yes, they did it really well, and they did it great.
But I think they do matter if you don't know the story. Like if you haven't played the game, if you're just coming in cold.
But if
Like
you do know
me.
the game, then you know everything. And if it didn't,
Right, but I mean, like, Elizabeth didn't know anything about this game, and I think it's fun to allow people because I wasn't going to tell her, to watch, like Anne, watching her reaction to this stuff. I like when people come to things fresh. You know, you get
but
to-
again, those of us who did not come to it fresh,
right.
we had no lesson experience with it.
That's
I don't know. It's a bigger topic for another time. All right, what's next?
All right, Ryan Lohner writes, nice little change to have the soldier say "I'm sorry" before he tries to kill Joel. Gives him a bit more humanity. You know, I thought in the game when I watched this, I thought that was right out of the game. But I guess now that I think about it, he doesn't say "I'm sorry."
A simple little line like that gives so much more texture to the scene, because it would have been easy as the soldiers are just the cold-blooded blah blah.
Right.
It's like, no, these are all people. These are all people, and like even the way the soldier's like double checking with his commanding officer, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, sir.
He was freaking out too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
in
love that. It was
in
great.
the game, he does say, but it's just a little girl and her father. But I mean, he doesn't say "I'm sorry." He just shoots.
Yeah.
So, all right. Up next, CJ Rebirth writes, "I'm so glad I started playing the game before this because it makes my experience better. Perfect first episode. Funniest moment was Ellie going 7, 8, 9, F you."
Yeah.
That was great.
That line was fantastic. And again, going back to the last thing we were just talking about, somebody saying, "I'm glad I started to know the story before watching it because it's enhanced my experience."
Yeah.
Not everybody will feel that way though, so some keep. But you're right. That part was great. I loved when she finally sat down and talked with the leader of the Fireflies, and they had that conversation. There was something about the connection, and I really loved it. And also then when another fun scene, she comes barreling out the door to attack Joel, and he's just like, just swats her. I thought that was great.
I
too.
did like the fact that kind of made her more hard. She has more of a hard edge
Yes,
to
a
her
little bit more,
because
yeah.
because growing up in that world, how could you not? You know, she's not as nice and sweet. She brought something, and that was a different kind of an energy that was in the game, but I found it more believable as well.
I agree.
I'm like, I believe this kid.
All right, what's next?
All right. Walter White Walker writes, "I highly appreciate attention to small details in TV and film, like when Joel gives the dude the pills and says, I need the bag. I need the bag back."
I love
was
that.
Watch
great.
That was
equals high,
great.
high demand.
Yeah, it's like, wait a minute. Like in this world, wouldn't you want to keep something like? How many Ziploc freezer bag manufacturers are there out there right now?
Yeah, yeah.
You're right. The
Great.
little attention to detail was great. All right, what's next?
All right. Next up, we've got Walter White Walker again. Hope the God of War showrunner's taking notes.
Well, here's the thing, though. This is a great example of just a story being executed great. There's no notes to be taken for any other showrunner. Every story is unique. What has to be maintained as source material accurate and what has to be adapted is going to vary from one thing to the next. But I do hope God of War is able to pull off what they've been able to pull off here, because that's another one that has some really great story that you can tell, and I'm very excited about that one. Although it doesn't have the same showrunner as
Yeah, and it's more of a fantasy
Yeah.
thing, so there's a little bit more leeway.
All right, what's next?
CJ Rebirth writes, "If you tell me to look for the light, I'll break your jaw."
Yep. I mean, in that sense, it was almost like the Fireflies were the Jehovah's Witnesses of
Yeah.
Boston.
See, that's what I mean. I wanted them to delve a little more into that whole world. How did this all work? I just wanted a little bit more of that, the same way they added to the tapestry of the actual infection.
But I
that
think
kind of
we
a thing.
will. I think as
Yeah,
we
that's
move
true.
forward, it will. They'll reveal a little bit
I mean,
more.
the
We'll
whole
get to know
story
the
is
world.
about that, so,
Yeah.
you know.
All right, what's next?
All right, next up, Abel Leon. "I also loved how they set up for the fungal infection as completely different from the other types of infections, especially the general audience who doesn't know the game. I gave them creative leeway.
Yeah, I mean, look, not only was it dramatically great, that opening scene was great for setting stage. And I love how the fact that it wasn't an interview that happened 6 months before the outbreak.
Right.
It was like, hey man, all the way back in 1968.
Yeah.
Like this was, you know what? I wonder, I don't know this. Was that dramatization based on maybe a real interview that happened on some TV show or something?
I wondered the same thing. I do not know if I'm sure in the next couple of days, BuzzFeed or somebody will do some article about this conversation was actually based on blah 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 on the Dick Cavett show.
Yeah.
It'll be, but I thought the same thing. I just
wonder.
didn't look it up.
All right, what's
It was
next?
great.
All right, Daniel Vacura writes, as said on the HBO podcast, originally this was 2 episodes with the episode ending as Joel tossed the girl's body. It was said to be too bleak and thinking they'd lose the audience with that ending, hence the length. That makes a lot of sense.
This is a great example of why I love when shows launch with 2 or 3 episodes, because while I love the episodic week-to-week release schedule, I think that's the way to go. You need to still get us hooked with our first encounter with a show. And I agree. Look, I still would have loved it even if it had ended with the reveal of Joel now this many 20 years later or 20 years later and throwing the kid's body in. It still would have been great, but going further than that into the story than that for our first sit down with the show, I think was key.
Yeah, and also, can you imagine if that was the first episode? That's a bleak ending. I'm not going to watch this show again.
Yeah, and I don't know that you can do the first show because at that point we still hadn't met Ellie.
Right.
And really, I mean, minor spoiler alert, but when you look at The Last of Us as a franchise as a whole, it's not Joel's franchise, it's Ellie's franchise.
Yeah.
And I think you got to meet her in the first episode.
And it's interesting because I think that's why there's 9 episodes instead of 10, right?
Oh, probably.
And that makes totally. I was wondering why would they do now that it all makes sense. That was a great choice.
I found the inspiration for that opening scene.
Oh, really?
So they initially were thinking of doing basically a clip like David Attenborough's BBC Planet Earth, where they actually have the cordyceps taking over an ant.
Right.
And then the other showrunner was like, it's kind of boring. Like, you feel like you're in social studies class. So then they wanted to make it like a Dick Cavett-esque show talking about that instead of showing you just the nature clip.
I still think just showing the nature clip would have been just as effective. But I loved it. I loved what they did.
Plus, we got to have Big Head from Silicon Valley.
Exactly.
Yeah, we did.
Everyone in our viewing nailed it.
And it was great. His was and word from
And
the
wait,
sponsor
so
or whatever.
you had the guy from Silicon Valley. You had the guy from Spartacus. I recognized the
Peacemaker.
other... Who
Or
was he?
isn't that Peacemaker? Yeah, he's the hired detective who becomes the sheriff and then gets taken over.
No, was that
Yeah.
him?
Really?
Yeah.
I never would have guessed that. That's not where I thought it was from. Interesting. All right. What's
Well,
next?
And just like Big Head said, and now a word from our sponsor, we're going to take a quick break and hear from our sponsor, the folks at Rocket Money.
Smooth.
Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Rocket Money. Do you know how much your subscriptions cost? Most Americans think they spend around $80 a month on subscriptions, when the actual total is closer to $200. If you don't know exactly how much you're spending every month, you need Rocket Money. When I started using Rocket Money, I couldn't believe how many things I was still paying for. Ann and I haven't lived in Burbank for almost 2 years, and I didn't realize I was still paying for a gym membership in Burbank for 2 years. Rocket Money, formerly known as Truebill, is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills, all in one place. Over 80% of people have subscriptions that they've forgotten about, like that streaming service you bought to watch just one show on, or that free trial that you never even used, or like me, a gym membership in Burbank. Simply find the subscriptions you don't want and press cancel, and Rocket Money will cancel it for you. So stop throwing your money away. Cancel unwanted subscriptions and manage your expenses the easy way by going to rocketmoney.com/Campea. That's rocketmoney.com/Campea.
All right, guys, we're back. We're here with Mr. Hank Dunn, who writes, the beginning with the scientists explaining why fungi might be a problem scared me the most. I don't know how accurate science is, man, but it... no, wait, let me try that again. I don't know how accurate science is, but man, was it effective.
It's Chris
was
pointed
great.
it out, man. When everything is scarier when there's based on a reality. And when it is, and something actually becomes conceivable. This is why in A Quiet Place, the absolutely most terrifying part of A Quiet Place is not the alien monsters ripping people apart. It's Emily Blunt walking down some stairs and you see the rusty nail she's going to step on. Because that does and can happen, and it makes it far scarier than anything else in there.
I agree.
So yeah, that's why I love the science of that. All right, what's next?
All right, Daniel Vacura writes, my one criticism is the same as Jeremy John's, where it felt rushed with the bite and being immune reveal.
Did he say that? I felt that too, only because in the game they make more of a meal out of that. It's a longer scene, and I thought that it was like, what did that mean exactly?
But
So
I
hang on,
disagree.
there's still more.
Okay, go ahead.
sorry.
There wasn't time to breathe with Tess pulling a gun on Ellie and questioning it like the game.
Okay, but here's why I disagree. I would say this. It would have felt rushed if The bike gets revealed. She goes, you don't understand. I'm the last hope of humanity. You have to get me to the Fireflies so they can engineer a cure, and blah, blah, blah. And if they had done all that in the 15 seconds, I would say it's rushed. But as an end of the episode quick crumb drop, that goes, wait a minute, what? I don't think the audience, again, take away the video game. I don't think the audience is supposed to fully understand. Well, wait a minute, is she infected or not? I think we're supposed to wonder that, and I don't think we're supposed to know the answer to that. I thought it was just, again, a little crumb to lead into the next episode.
So I have two things on that. One, also, unlike the video game, we had this whole scene where she was chained.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we already established this
Yep.
narratively. Two, I just played the game again, and it does feel that rushed when they when they discover it out in the field. So that's just my 2 cents.
And they've made a real effort to make Tess a little softer. I mean, I know we see her like being a badass, negotiating, taking those licks and everything.
But in the game,
we see
she's
her
just
straight up like
Yeah.
murder people when
Yeah.
she doesn't like them.
Right.
Yeah. All right, what's next?
All right, Abel Leone writes, also, was it only me, but when Tommy called Joel to bail him out, the people Tommy was fighting in the bar that's another part of it, were early stage infected. Yes.
I
It
think
was
so.
part of them like weaving that narrative in.
Just the escalating crisis.
This guy was crazy. He was going to attack the bartender. I had to punch him out. You know?
And I really did like how they added the tentacles,
The fungus
coming out of the
coming
mouth.
out,
I
yeah.
thought that was an elegant way to do it, and let viewers. It made it more horrifying.
Yeah, I
that they
agree.
had to do the whole feeding thing when instead of just being, oh, I breathed in some spores.
By the way, that reminds me of going back to the opening scientist thing where it says eventually it consumes you from the inside out, right? And then when we get into the underground subway system, they find the now dead infected person because the fungus had completed its consumption of the guy.
Yeah,
All was left
I
was the corpse.
loved that.
Yeah, that was great.
We'll see more of them. I've seen in the trailer. There's more of that kind of stuff. I do think spores will become an issue because that's how the old lady in the wheelchair got it.
Right.
Yeah.
He was never bitten, but yeah. Okay, so Daniel Vakura writes back, the show did a great job of maintaining the environmental storytelling from the game without exposition dumps. It treated the audience as being smart.
And you know what? That's exactly what I was saying earlier. There was so much show, don't tell. Like we learned so much about the world just from the kid showing up and them having to euthanize the kid. We learned so much about just seeing. We know where Joel is at mentally now and everything. Just seeing him now dumping bodies in fires. We understand a lot more of the world just by. We got more work tomorrow doing this and doing this.
Oh man, that was brutal.
All those things could have been exposition dumps, but instead we see it playing out, and they did a great job. Now, sometimes exposition dumps are helpful and necessary, but when they're not, the lazy use them anyway, and here they didn't. I really like that. All right, what's next?
All right, Derek Large writes, what are the rules and spoilers from the games, considering we may have new fans watching? P.S. Love the addition of Joel beating the guard to death.
Yeah, like we said earlier, if you're watching a spoiler review of it, you got to understand that some things might get revealed about later on things, but we will try to avoid
It's
those.
just like Game of Thrones in the books. When we had to review Game of Thrones, the books were already out. So,
but I think Rob and I were talking about this. I loved the Joel killing the guard thing, and the reason I liked it is a little subtle thing. I don't think it was for us to see how savage Joel can be, because I think we already got that. Like they said, what was the name of the guy that roughed her up and stole the battery?
Harris?
Harris?
Is that it?
Even if it's not, let's just say Harris. Harris is terrified of you, right? Just by that one line, we know he's got a reputation, right? So we knew he could beat the shit out of and kill the guard. What was key is twice the camera cut to Ellie watching him kill the guard.
Yes.
And I think that was pivotal and important.
Well, it was also personal because he's killing somebody he knows. And
Yeah.
in the game, he's just gunning down random,
It's just NPCs.
NPCs. And this, to kill somebody that you just did business with earlier, makes the whole thing. I mean, Ellie didn't see that, but for the viewers, we know that, he does what he needs to do to save the people he's with. I mean, I thought it was a much better and more personal way to go.
All right, what's next?
Daniel Vakura is back and writes, a really smart change was Joel needing to go find Tommy, which makes this journey more personal with needing the battery compared to just doing a job.
Yeah.
Yep.
He already had motivation. They established his purpose for wanting to go. So it was a matter of necessity for him that he take this on. So again, a great example of making a change that actually makes it better.
Adaptation.
Yeah, loved it.
All right, Brandon Nezamuddin writes, the brilliance of the opening scene is that it instantly paints the whole show as a cautionary tale. All that science is basically 100% true. This could theoretically happen if we aren't careful.
Well,
Yeah, there's some liberties taken.
Yeah. It's again, it goes back to the way Chris phrased it. It's based on all reality, and then it kind of goes. But you were pointing it out too, Rob, about when we were talking about Avatar: The Way of Water. I mean, that's James Cameron telling a cautionary tale about preservation and all that kind of stuff wrapped in this. And that's kind of what they did here,
It's
too.
also allegory in the sense that global warming is going to have big effects across the environment.
Yeah.
They just picked one way to say, hey, global, and it wasn't, by the way, not preachy. It was just the way it is.
Yeah,
it
just
was
drop
just
it
like,
back.
The way it is.
What if the planet warmed or something? That's all.
Yeah, it was great.
All right. What name do you have next on your screen there, Taylor?
Let's see. The last one I had that matched yours was Derek Large with the spoiler question.
But what do you have next?
Next, I have Boone Lee Tan.
All right, so let me find that, and then we just have to scroll down. Okay. So, hey, crew. I've not played the games, and that intro was all I knew of it, and loved the show. First half was Sarah's leading the show. Miss her already.
Yeah, I mean, and that's, I think, what's going to be startling to a lot of people was... Because they set it up like she's a main character in the show. And then she's not. And I think a lot of people, even when Joel sees that she's been shot and she's laying on the ground, like, breathe, oh, wow, God, that was so horrifying. I think even then, if they get her to safety and she's dead. I just thought it was really, really set up well. All right, what's next?
All right, next up we've got Jason A. I love when they put something scary in the background. Library scene in it. Most of Hill House, and most recently this. Also more Anna Torv, please.
I'll tell you what, it's subtle things can be the scariest. You know what was the first movie that I really noticed that in? M. Night Shyamalan's, what's the damn one with the water? Not Lady in the Water. Not Lady, but we're like throwing the water on the aliens.
Signs.
Signs.
With a fart finger.
Yep. I mean, it's the little things like he turns his head just to see the last bit of a foot disappearing into the cornfield.
Yeah.
It's the little subtle stuff. And you're right. That I'm telling you, man, that grandma moving her head in the background, that was one of the freakiest things I've seen in a while. That was really well done. All right, what's next?
All right, next up we got Fangblaze71. Can't lie, I laughed so hard when Ellie tried to attack Joel and he just slammed her into the wall.
I mentioned that myself. I thought it was boom. It's like, sit down. I like that line. And then she goes for the knife and he's just stepping on the knife. Oh, I love that. It was great. All right, what's next?
All right, Santez Henderson writes, it's weird that I knew Sarah's death was coming and it still made me cry. It hits extra hard now being a father of a little girl. The show nailed the frantic feeling of everything going to crap.
Again, like we were mentioning before, it is crazy that the emotional impact seems to be similar between the people who do not know this story and the people who knew exactly what was about to happen. That is a credit to the people who made this show.
Yeah.
Like a lot. That we knew, okay, this girl, yeah, she dies. I know she dies here just in a bit. And yet when it happens, we're like, no! Like it was...
well, because they make you really like her.
They make you care.
You really do.
She's so smart and funny.
And sweet. And,
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And here's the other thing about Joel, too. She took care of Joel.
Yep.
And which is going to be like how lost he is now that she's not there. Crazy. All right, what's next?
Also, just real quick, I love the cut to Tommy where Tommy looked defeated, and then when you cut back to them, Sarah's just limp.
Oh, yeah.
So Fangblaze71 writes, man, that episode was perfect. First half hour kind of reminded me of A Quiet Place. This truly felt like movie quality in every way. Loved it so much.
Going back to what Ray was saying earlier, like that's another thing A Quiet Place like did really well eventually in its reveals later on, especially once you get into A Quiet Place 2, is the gradual escalation of the crisis. right? Where people are now realizing there's a crisis and a problem, and they did that. And that's a great comparison to Quiet Place. I like that a lot.
All right. Abel Leon writes, okay, I've spent too much. See you guys next week.
Thank you, man, for being here. I appreciate it, dude.
All right. And then I just want to see where we're at here. The Frederick, I think it's Abel Leon again still. A new scene that was made specifically for the show was the kid walking into the Boston QZ and Frederick killing him because he was infected. It was a hard thing to watch, and it was very well set up or how Ellie is infected by the red light. Well done.
Yeah, like so much was accomplished by that scene of the kid walking into Boston. It kind of, without an exposition dump, it told us a lot about the state of the world. It was a heartbreaking moment, but it provided great foreshadowing and underpinning for the Ellie reveal. Like, the Ellie reveal isn't as startling, and we may not get her reaction to the red light. Oh my God! If it wasn't for that scene, like, again, they realized we got this coming. We need to lay some foundation. It was masterfully executed. Masterfully done.
Yeah, and if you think about it, I'm obsessed with the idea that that's where the episode was going to end, because they dissolve up and you see the chyron, the lower third that says Boston.
Yeah.
And then this shambling, the kid coming out. I'm glad they didn't end the episode there, but that would have been a great episode ending. I just don't think anybody else would have come back another day and watched.
Well, I'm going to go drink some bourbon now.
Yeah, it's just like they couldn't do that, but it was really well done.
All right, what's next?
All right, Daniel Vacura is back. I'll never forget starting the game and going, oh no, Sarah is going to die since she's not been promoted and marketed at all with Ellie. Still impactful.
Look, that's part of the thing about marketing, right? It's like, we've never seen this person in any of the commercials. I'm guessing they don't make it. That happens. All right, what's next?
I just got to find my spot here. I think it is, we did the Boon Lee Tan run, right? So I think it's Fangblaze 71. I don't want to hear any more complaining about the actress cast as Ellie. She was perfect and perfectly captures the game Ellie personality.
Hell yes.
Yeah, it won't change though. Here's the problem with us as people. Once somebody plants their flag like that, they'll die on that hill. It doesn't matter. Like, the people who are like, she's terrible. She could win the Emmy, the Golden Globe, the Critics' Choice Award, all that kind of stuff, and it will not matter. They will. And listen, a lot of people, all people are like that in one way or another. All people are. So it probably won't change any of that narrative for them. But she was fantastic.
She's phenomenal.
She was so good in this. All right, what's next?
All right. Tumbling Tornado. Man, the de-aging technology in this show is top notch. I can't believe they de-aged Thandoi Newton into a teenager.
Thandie Newton.
Okay. What an awesome cameo. Great start, and I can't wait enough for the next one.
Although, I will say this, because I did not know how far into the future they were going to jump. So I didn't know it was going to... What did they say it was? 20
years.
20. I didn't know that the jump was going to be 20 years. But when he's sitting at the breakfast table with his daughter, and they're like, how old are you now? And he says, I'm 35. I'm like, Pedro, you're a handsome man. You do not pass for 35. I just remember thinking that, but when it jumped 20 years in the future, I realized, okay, I get it, because all they had to do was put a little bit of flour in his hair.
Yeah.
That's a little bit, just slight gray dusting in his hair. It's like, oh yeah, I totally believe you as a 55-year-old now. That I totally buy.
By the way, I hope our viewer understands that is Thandie Newton's real daughter.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, I think they probably did. Yeah.
I don't know.
All right, what's next?
All right, from Cockroach 77. Awesome first episode. I can't wait to see more of the clickers. Genuine terror during that first sequence where they're introduced.
By the way, that the very final shot of the episode, as the camera pans back and you see them now walking into the city.
And Depeche Mode is playing.
And Depeche, just on the one building top on the left, you see a clicker.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Yes. And you see it finally at the last second, it just kind of moves and goes, it starts doing that. I'm like, there it is.
I kept hearing them. I never saw it.
That's where it is. Okay. Left side, top of the building on the left side. Just wait for it, and then you'll see some movement, and then it becomes apparent it's a clicker.
Gotcha. All right, we've got CJ Rebirth here. Your watch is broken. Ugh, that hit me twice as hard. Also loved when Ellie tricks Joel about the 80s code message.
I love that bit.
I hate. It's happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to everybody. When you unknowingly, and you find out that you unknowingly said something super insensitive to somebody else, where like it's, I don't know, like I saw a joke in a movie about it because they were just, but like, man, your parents didn't raise you right. My parents died in a car accident when I was 5. Well, I'm an asshole. like that sort of thing. Like, and that's when she says that your watch is broken. Like, you know, she totally didn't mean anything about it, but like the rest of us watching that, we're like,
how subtly acted too by him. He just kind of flickers his eyes.
Yeah.
oh, you felt so bad. Anyway, all right, what's next?
All right, Jared Vester writes, they have a podcast after the show with the creators on, but they said that Tess basically has a leash around Joel like a rabid dog because of how dangerous he is, and only she can let him loose.
You know what? I did not watch. I wanted to, but the thing is, I went out last night, so I watched the show quite late last night, and I still had to write show notes. So I did not watch the post game, the post show, but I would like to watch it.
It was good. But then they have an actual podcast.
Yeah, with
Right.
Troy Baker as the
Afterwards.
host.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
it's
that I
two
did listen
separate
to.
things.
Yeah,
Okay.
two separate things.
Interesting. All right. What's next?
All right, we just did Jared. So JJav Dab writes, Ellie was perfectly casted so far.
Oh,
I mean, yeah. I mean, look, it comes down to execution. And listen, I liked her casting immediately because I loved her in Game of Thrones, and I know she can act, so that's great. But it's not until you actually see them doing it. And once we saw her playing the role, I'm like, that's Ellie.
yeah, and also, you know, a lot of the time you've got internal casting people, and she'd already impressed HBO.
Yeah.
So that was I can't even imagine casting that role was one of the probably most sought after roles for a young actress that there could possibly be. And what they did was they found the best actress that had already proven by doing great work as little young Miss Mormont that she could do the job.
Well, it's Mormont and Oberyn.
Yes.
It's a Westeros reunion.
That's exactly right.
All right, what's next?
Next, we got Dat Boy 22. Both Last of Us games are very important to me. I'm so glad this story will be experienced by a larger audience now that it's an HBO series.
Yeah, again, it is a tremendous story, and the reality is, video games, despite what people will try to sell you, they do not tell stories the way, because they're not primary storytelling devices. They are gameplay devices that can also have some great stories, but they are what they are. Not many, I mean, I can count on one hand, have had that level of storytelling. And that God of War, like things, the fact that we're going to get these stories told in a new medium where they are just focusing on the story is really exciting to me. All right, what's next?
All right, bear with me. I just bumped the chats here. Taylor, do you see what the next?
Yeah, I have Kenneth Colton. Do you want?
Oh yeah, no, I got it right here. Yeah. All right, Kenneth Colton. Love the first episode with a runtime of an hour and 20 minutes. It felt more like watching a movie than a TV series, which is amazing.
Yeah, I love that. Again, look, I don't want to come across as if there's only one way to do things, but I will confess, it highlights for me how bullshit I think Disney Plus's like 28-minute, 32-minute runtime things are. It's just, yeah, it was very satisfying. It was very satisfying.
And the production values were incredibly high.
The set designs, the world creation, it was all so top-notch. All right, what's next?
All right, JJav Dav writes again, Robert being afraid of Joel was great.
Robert's his name, not Harris.
Yeah, not Harrison. Yep, it
what's a
was.
dick name?
And again, just one line, that one line, he's afraid of you. That tells us pages of dialogue worth of who Joel is, his reputation, how the world around him sees him. With that one line, it told us almost everything we needed to know. It was great. I loved it.
Yep. JJav Dav is back. Loved how the adaptations worked.
100%. They elevated the original material. They let the original material shine where it shone, and then it elevated and changed it where it needed to make a better viewing experience. So, loved it.
All right. Jay Khalil writes, and now they are out in the open world. #clicker.
Yeah, so I mean, visually, it represented a philosophical thing too. It was now they are out in the world. They are both physically, we saw them walking into the world, but from a narrative point of view, they've now gone outside of the confines. We are now about to explore the world of The Last of Us, and I thought that was very well done.
Agreed.
Zeke Said So Pictures. Great first episode. The acting and writing were great.
100%.
Top-notch.
Yeah, no, they really were. And the thing is, all the way through, if you're a game fan, it felt like the game,
Yeah.
which that's not easy to do either. Like when you're going into a milieu, even the color palette of the different things like that were painted on walls and all that. It just felt like I was playing the game.
All right.
You know what kind of quickly, and it won't even be a Game of Thrones spoiler, but the 60s, 70s, and 80s on the radio, what those things meant, it kind of threw me back to the Watchers on the Wall and what the 1, 2, or 3 horn blasts represented.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. I like that comparison.
Jared Vester, if Mario Brothers is a good movie this year, will be a huge win for game adaptations. Not sure what this means for the future, but it's nice to finally have our first big Universal win.
I have to agree. Look, this 2023 could be whatever the year Warcraft came out was, because we had Warcraft and Assassin's Creed coming out, and I pointed for a long time and said, it's coming. We've got Warcraft and Assassin's Creed coming. This is going to be it. This is going to open up the dam and the floodgates of ushering in a golden era of video game adaptation things. Wah, wah. Didn't quite work out that way. Oh my God, we're off to a good start.
Good start.
And if Mario Brothers, and this is a big if, but it looks good right now. If Mario Brothers and this knock it out of the park, and then we got God of War coming, I mean, now we could be getting there. 7 years after the fact, but now we could be getting there. All right, what's next?
All right, Walter White Walker writes, I can't imagine what Rob, oh my God, this is so stupid, going through knowing that Sarah will never grow up. Condolences, stupid.
No.
Moving on.
Okay, move on.
Cutter Hale writes, as a fan, and you know what? Never mind. Anyway, Cutter Hale, as a big fan of the game, they followed it to a T with a couple of minor changes, but also added more, which was awesome. Also, acting was perfect. Bring on the filthy.
Yep, and again, it's a great example that, and listen, some things, some people might be tempted to say, see, like, because this was like 75% total game accurate, 25% adaptation. And now some people are going to be tempted to say, see, all video game adaptations should be 75% this. No,
Yeah.
because every game is different and every game is every story is different. This one, they identified that this works well. And by the way, it's only one episode where let's go shot by shot, total accuracy to the game here because this works. And we identified the parts that don't work as well on a television screen.
Yeah.
So for some adaptations, that might be 50-50. For some, that might be 25-75. It depends from game to game, series to series. The key is, the principle is not the percentage, is not the formula. The key is identify what needs to be adapted, regardless if it's 10% or 90%, and then adapt. And stay faithful where you can.
Well, and also this game, the very construction of it and the story that's being told, the gameplay is part of the plot, if that makes any sense. I mean, the storyline, like escaping from a milieu, is part of the game. That's part of the actual gameplay. So we got to see everything that you're doing in that is you're rescuing somebody or you're protecting another human being. That's intrinsic. Not all games are like that. Like when you're playing Uncharted, which I love, but you're not protecting necessarily someone else, especially in the first game, other than yourself. There's always an element in The Last of Us where you're trying to make sure you're keeping somebody else safe. Mm-hmm. That was a big part of that game. So you as a player are trained to emotionally be invested rather than just playing a game. Your emotions are in play.
All right, what's next?
All right. Ishmael Montoya writes, hey guys, what an amazing show. I wouldn't mind watching new things outside the game. I'm glad to have seeing so much of the game.
This kind of came up in the John Campea Show earlier today, where somebody wrote in earlier and said, hey, it would have been nice to see them go outside of the game. I mean, we've already seen it for the game. You got to understand, 90% of the people who are watching Last of Us have never played the game.
Right.
maybe not 90%, but a majority of the people who watch the show are not going to be those who understand the game. So you got to establish this world. You got to tell this story first before you start telling other ones. Yeah. And we'll get there. Look, if this show and its second season are as successful as they clearly deserve to be, we'll start to see other stories be told in this world.
I have a
Other
question.
regions of the world or what country or whatever.
Do you think? I don't think we're going to get to the end of the first game in this series
I don't think
after
so.
I don't
watching.
think so either.
Not at all.
That's what I was saying. I think they're going season 2 for this.
But I won't be surprised if we do. Because while you may... Look, I watched like a 13-hour cutscene movie of the first. But we're talking about... This is going to be 9 or 10 hours. When I watched the cutscene movie of The Last of Us, it was a little bit more than that. And I'll tell you this. I agree with you that I don't think we will get to the end of the game. But I totally believe they could.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think
believe
so.
they
I
could.
think so. I just can't see them ending this season of television the way the game ends.
Yeah.
Well, with them driving away in the car, and
Well,
she said, "What happened?" Oh,
It just, but then you'd be like, okay, well that's over. I think they need to give us more. I think when they examine the various milieus that they go through, I think we're going to spend a little bit more time in each one of those places than they do in the game.
Although they show a lot in the trailer, so they're either showing stuff from season 2 as well and being coy about it.
You know what? Could
Or-
be true. That's true.
Chris, do they get to the end of the first game in the first season?
I
Yeah.
don't think they will. I think they're going to expand upon things.
I hope.
It's
They'd be
only
smart to stretch
it's
it out.
9 episodes, and I don't think they're all going to be 85 minutes long. So
No, they probably won't. You're right.
Going back to that one comment though about how they merged 2 episodes, that makes sense why there's only 9 episodes then instead of 10.
Well, that's what Rob brought up earlier.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
listen, so.
Yeah. All right. What's next?
All right. So Mike's Movie Madness, part 1 of 2. I love this first episode, but I'm still curious if the first season will be the first game. Or if they'll only adapt the first half of the story for season 1, then the rest of in season 2. Here's part 2. Maybe even introduce characters from the second game in season 3.
Well, again, here's the thing. When you strip out all the gameplay, you can get through The Last of Us story effectively with good pace, probably in 9 episodes. You probably can. But will they? And that's the big question. Because they may not want to go into... They may want to take advantage of Pedro Pascal and have the first 2 seasons with Joel. Maybe. But then that begs the question, what's the natural ending point for a season 1 if you're not finishing the first game? And I don't have an answer for that. I don't know where that is. Because I hate it when seasons end on what feels just like a random ending point. Like rather than we brought something to a conclusion, and I just don't know where that would be. But I mean, if they do, I'm sure the showrunners came up with it. All right, what's next?
All right, A-Rod 2006. Gabriel Luna needs to start getting more praise. The best live-action Ghost Rider, the best part of the last Terminator film, awesome in Last of Us.
hopefully this will turn some things around for him.
I don't know if he's the best part.
I like him very much as an actor. What I'm humming and hawing about, he was the best live-action Ghost Rider. 2 things.
Low bar.
One, that's an incredibly low bar. But also, like, Nicolas Cage is a better actor than Diego Luna. Gabriel Luna, sorry. He's an Academy Award winner. He is what he is. Luna did not create that character. That was written by other people. And he came in and played the role well. And I was excited to hear that he was also going to be in this game playing Tommy. I was excited to hear that, and I am. But I am looking forward to him being more involved in this game in this season than he maybe even was in the game. All right, what's next?
All right, we got Paul J. Jepson who writes that grandma scene.
It's a truly, we're going to be talking about that scene all year, I think. It's a truly, truly great scene.
But I mean, when you first see them, when Joel and Sarah are loading up the truck, and you just see like this old man feeding an even older woman in the wheelchair, you're just thinking they're dead. There's no way these people
Yeah, they ain't gonna make it.
Right.
This is what we call in the business the sympathy kill. Like you're getting this, oh, these sweet people, oh no, they died. Like it's what we call sympathy kill. And yeah, you knew that right away.
Yeah, they're not built for the new world.
Yeah, they ain't going to survive the apocalypse.
All right, Motasm writes, the first 40 minutes when the world started turning to crap almost gave me an anxiety attack. It should have. I've seen many disaster movies, but this felt eerily real.
You know, I think, Jonathan, you might have been the first person to point it out, because when I watched the show, when I was watching it for the first time, and you get the first plane that flies overhead, and then they turn, there's 2 more planes immediately flying overhead. It's like, what's that about? And then I think, Jonathan, it was you that pointed out, that was all hell breaking loose, and the plane's just taking off to get out of there.
Yeah, they were like, just close the hatches, we're out. And
Yep,
they're just
we're
right
out.
behind. Yeah.
Yep, I think that was a great observation. All right, what's next?
All right, Reggie Phoenix writes, when Ellie said, why won't you let me go home? Ugh.
Yeah. I mean, again, there's a whole backstory there to her that they're going to get more into as we get later into the season.
I think
But
that's
yeah,
how
it was great.
I think that's how they're going to flesh out this series as well, with those backstories of her.
Yep.
And I think we're going to see what Joel went through in those 20 years in flashbacks as well to get to Boston, and onward. Okay, Harv's K writes, love that needle drop at the end. My favorite Depeche Mode song. It was pretty good.
Yeah, and again, the little cameo of the clicker and all that kind of stuff looked great. Actually, the final shot reminded me a little bit of a closing shot of a season of Stranger Things.
Yeah, that was a building, like it's the discovery of
I have to expect it hearing doodle.
The clicker's got a Demogorgon vibe too.
It totally does.
totally.
Absolutely.
And that building, but that's right out of the game,
Yeah.
too. I love that.
All right, what's next?
All right, Alan Ling writes, I wasn't expecting the 1968 news segment, but it was pretty cool watching it and seemed like it was a really good way to frame the plot of the series.
Yep, it was a brilliant decision. Look, it's like building a building. You understand, you know what? We need something to support this here. And they understood that, they put it in, and it really set the context for the show beautifully.
Yeah, it really did.
All right, what's next?
All right, JMB Gator writes, the opening talk show scene had Craig Mazin Chernobyl written all over it.
You know what? You're right. That scene was all his thumbprint. It absolutely was. That's a good observation.
But that's a great instinct, though.
Yeah.
All right, next up we got Send Me Your Scripts.
Scream.
When Joel's daughter finds out that the infection comes from town, does that imply that Joel's daughter was infected when she brought Joel's gift? I think it just showed that she was kind of freaked out because she's like, oh, I've been around town.
I think it showed that she was also intelligent.
Yeah.
Like she started to put those pieces of the puzzle. It doesn't mean look, the grandmother's the older couple that was looking after the grandmother, they clearly went into town too.
The hospitals.
To take her to the hospital.
Yeah.
And they weren't infected. So clearly, I don't know that the suggestion was that she was already infected. I think it just showed that she was a bright girl. She was smart. She was putting 2 and 2 together.
I agree.
And I thought that's what it was doing.
All right, Kyle Schneider writes, I love that they showed Ellie how absolutely brutal Joel can be so early in the story.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, the performance of Bella Ramsey there, because there was a hint of, oh my goodness, but there was also a hell yeah,
Yep.
kind of look on her face, right?
Yeah.
And so it told us a lot about her without saying any dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
We now understand her perception of Joel, because I think her perception of Joel just got totally set. Plus, he just saved her life.
And it also set up the fact that she's a veteran of this horrible world she was born into.
Yeah.
You got to be a hard individual to survive.
All right, what's
She
next?
is.
All right, JC writes, I thought humanity fared pretty well in the show. They set up a safe-ish cities. If it really happened, I think they'd botch it. Well, they weren't. It was like a military fascist regime, where you could be hung for any
Going out,
infraction.
yeah.
So,
To prevent infection and insurrection.
yeah.
That sounds like a rap song. I mean, how well did we fare? Like in the world of The Last of Us, did we fare all that well? I'm not sure.
That's so good.
All right, what's next?
All right, Kurt writes, what were people's problems with Bella Ramsey playing Ellie? Do they not like good actors? No, they don't, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. Look, again, it comes down to, I think for some people, there's this ridiculous notion out there that has been proven to be false 1,000 times over. But she doesn't look like she does in the game.
Well, yeah, you're right.
Who gives a shit? It doesn't mean squat diddly crap.
That was part of it, and some people would talk about how she wasn't as pretty as the character in the game. She's a 14-year-old girl.
Yeah, it's like
Calm down.
Some people
Yeah.
are so fucking
If
stupid.
you don't find a 14-year-old girl attractive, that's probably a good thing, my dude. Don't be
Again,
creepy.
so stupid, so idiotic. Some people, I mean, I think already have the fungus. It's just
Truly.
whatever.
The cordyceps are here.
All right, what's next?
I mean, if they hate her as Ellie, they're not going to like her as Lady Mormont.
No.
Ian McAllister, did PS Productions make the show? Oh, PlayStation Productions make the show. I hope they apply what they learned to God of War.
They do have a big credit on the end.
Yep. And remember,
watch
they
the
set up that
credits.
whole studio to develop and then work with other partners. It was a huge deal. We made a very big deal out of this way back, going back a year or two, when Sony announced that it was a couple of years now, that Sony was setting up and developing their own PlayStation studio that specifically existed to take their properties to big and small screens. And yeah, so they had a big part of this.
So then how does that work with because Naughty Dog was the producer of the game, not PlayStation. Do
Well,
they
I mean,
just
but
share-
every game, every game, a lot of PlayStation games is developed by a third party, whatever. But
they
it's
own the
still,
rights.
yeah,
Isn't it exclusive
yeah,
to that
yeah. Last of
console?
Us is a PlayStation
so
exclusive
PlayStation
game.
owns
Yeah.
the rights.
Yeah.
I
So
think.
there's part ownership. It's like
Yeah,
when
there's partnership.
There's synergy there. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, plug your ears, Ray. Darth Raider writes, so happy the dog escaped, unlike in the game. Although it was off screen, we're here to yipe. It could
Yeah,
have just been
yeah,
like a
yeah.
yipe and it ran.
It got scared.
Yeah.
It got a little spooked and then boogied.
Ray was instantly going to check out of this show if that
Yeah.
dog died.
He's like, if this dog dies, I'm not even going to watch the show.
Oh yeah, he said that, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be
Because it's uncalled for. Who cares?
it's uncalled
Do you
for.
really need it? Even if someone just said, yeah, she ate the dog, without showing it, that's fine. But someone who shows a dog being beaten or eaten in a show, I think there's something wrong with you.
Yeah, like that woman neighbor getting eaten by the other neighbors.
Yeah, that's
totally
perfectly
good.
fine.
Totally
fine,
good.
That's fine.
But the
Whatever.
dog, unnecessary.
Whatever was coming out of his mouth, I think it looked like bean curd or string bean. Whatever.
That dog is leading a pack of other dogs. He's happy. He's living on a
Yeah.
farm
Yep,
somewhere.
living his
Yeah.
best life right now.
Perrito.
Oh,
Cal290 just sent some support here. And then Ian McAllister writes, seeing how amazing this show is makes me so stoked for more games adapted. Careful.
You remember?
Careful, you might get season 2 of Halo.
Yeah, I like Halo.
I know, I
don't
like
care
Halo
what he
too.
says. But remember, one has nothing to do with the other. Like God of War has nothing to do with Last of Us.
Look what they did to my beloved Assassin's Creed franchise.
I mean, other than the fact they are coming from PlayStation Studios, but it's going to be, they're different stories that have different writers and showrunners and on different networks. And, look, just because Assassin's Creed was bad doesn't mean Last of Us was going to be bad. Just because Last of Us is fantastic doesn't mean anything else is going to be good. So, but hey, it's nice to get a glimpse of something that turned out well.
Absolutely.
I have to
have
say,
hope.
I've been
100%.
winning. I've been winning here with PlayStation Productions ever since they started it. I got my Uncharted, which I thought was good.
That's right, you loved Uncharted.
And now we got this, so just don't be poo-poo.
So they're batting 1,000 for Ray right now.
Yeah.
All right, Chef Rigo.
Chef Rigo.
All right, this is a little bit what I was saying earlier. Joel yelling at Tommy for help when his daughter was dying and Tommy knew nothing can be done really broke me.
Yeah. Like, what didn't you just say, Joel?
Yeah, and then when they cut back, she's limp.
I just, and like they established earlier with, no dialogue, just a bumper sticker. They're military vets.
Yep.
They've seen this. He knew right away. Like, that's not a injury she's going to recover from.
And I'm so glad they didn't open the show like Desert Storm.
Yeah,
1993.
yeah.
Two tough guys.
I was worried they were going to do something like that.
And listen,
glad they did.
a lot of shows could have, but again, it was, hey, you know what? We could do that entire 5-minute sequence with a 2-second shot of a bumper sticker.
Yeah, exactly.
And we'll get it.
Exactly.
All right, what's next?
All right, D-Train writes, that shot of the dog looking at the old lady, wow.
Yeah.
Again, it just, one of the coolest shots.
Total creepathon.
Just the way it was like, something fucking just happened.
Yeah.
and I don't know what's going on.
And imagine if that was actually her dog, and then the she had it. That was her dog, and then
That would be an old dog.
Next year, Critics' Choice Award goes to
Dog.
That was better acting than all of Morbius.
Yeah.
That dog's performance was just.
All right, what's next?
All right, Vegito writes, I like how it took place in 2003 instead of 2013, like the game, because in 03 it was a lot slower knowing what was going on with the world, while 2013 we have social media to know what was going on. Yeah, it's funny because
That's a good choice. Good creative choice.
Yeah, I mean, I went in to play a little bit of the game earlier, and then me, Taylor, and Chris were saying, didn't it originally take place in 2013, so it would be 2033 in the game? And then I was like, yeah, because he had a smartphone in the game, and this one he just had an old Nokia, and George Bush was the president.
Yep. Yeah, that was a good choice on their part.
Daniel Vakura writes, The Last of Us is the road. Yeah, the road meets Children of Men with zombies. I rewatched Children of Men today, which is fantastic, and both are very influential on The Last of Us.
I don't think you're wrong.
No, not at all.
I mean, the influences are clearly there. By the way, somebody brought it up again. That's a movie that doesn't get talked about enough.
Children
is
of Men.
Children of Men.
Oh,
So good.
With Clive Owen. Oh. By the way, where's Clive Owen? Why is Clive Owen not a super big A-list star still?
He's wonderful.
He's so good. All right, what's next?
All right, a fan of Peanuts writes, The Last of Us 2 is my favorite game of all time. This series pilot is one of the most impressive, riveting, suspenseful openings I've ever seen. 9.5 out of 10. Amazing.
It's going to be really interesting to see. Now, look, just because it had that 75-25 split now, episode 2 could be different. Episode 2 may take a lot more liberty and be even better or be worse. I mean, we don't know. We're only talking about the first episode, but you're right, man. That first episode killed it. I'm counting down the days now till next Sunday.
Now I'm wondering where that 0.5 deduction came from.
Yeah, what was the point?
What was the 0.5 deduction? Now you got to send another message
They
and
should have
say,
killed the dog. That would have been tougher.
Oh no.
what was the 0.5 gripe?
If the neighbor was just a little older.
All right. Pretty. All right. Pretty Aya writes, How many seasons do you think the show will run?
2.
It's impossible.
Two guaranteed.
I mean, that would help me understand the length of where we hope to be. I could see it going 4 seasons with both games.
But here's the thing.
Material.
It's fine to have a plan.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if this thing draws in half the viewers that they were hoping to get or whatever, then they're not going to do another season.
It's true.
So, I mean, it's all based on that. So, look, take the viewership out of it. You could do 2 seasons or you could do 4. You either do 2 seasons per game or 1 season per game. So it's either 2 or 4. But again, everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth. And if nobody watches this show or what, again, we don't know. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
As long as they don't start doing DLC for seasons. Like, hey, you want to see Ellie's backstory? You got to buy this extra,
I don't know.
Pay
Come on,
$12.99
HBO
right
Max.
now.
That's not a bad idea. I mean, they made Walking Dead shorts. They made Star Wars shorts. Why not do,
Well, cut me a
Fear
piece
the
of that
Last
check
of
then.
Us?
Yeah, it's free is fine, but DLC.
Fear the Last of Us.
Fear the Last. All right, what's next?
All right. Jack Black Hooligan writes, Talk about world building at its finest. Totally felt immersed. Mason is first class at showing how these worlds operate from fear-based nature of the Soviet Union or fear-based post-apocalyptic future.
Yeah, you're right. He builds the context of the society in which the story takes place. And the society itself becomes a character. And a pivotal character and an influential character. And you're right. I mean, that is really part of the earmark of one of his shows. Not that we've had 25 of his shows to go through, but I mean, that's becoming clear. I think that's a great observation.
And also, one of the worst things that I could think of in a show is when you watch it and the environment takes you out of it.
Yes.
My roommate Ryan was watching Willow the other night, and I didn't know anything about it. I just looked at the screen, and I never looked at it again. I was just like, where the heck are they? That looks like a little room that they're in that they put trees in.
I'm going to assume you're talking about Willow the show.
Yeah,
not
Willow the
movie.
show.
Yeah.
And like this environment.
Is it shot on
I was
volume?
Or
they
whatever.
shoot Willow on
I don't know.
volume?
It just looked like the treehouse, like everything
Yeah.
was artificial.
Yeah.
You know what I
No
mean?
verisimilitude whatsoever.
Like some shots of Rings of Power.
All right, what's next?
All right. Mickey Veach writes, My only gripe so far is that the narrative is so loyal to the game, my emotional investment reacts in a way as if I was watching a rerun of my favorite show.
I mean, I could see that, but again, I didn't think it was very faithful to the game, but also had a bunch of adaptation. But different people are having different reactions to it, whether you knew the game or didn't know the game, or whatever. So I could totally see that reaction. I mean, I think a lot of people were very excited by the faithfulness of it, but to some it might just seem like a retread. I get it.
But I don't think, I mean, here's the thing. That's the thin line you draw, because this is an incredibly successful game franchise.
Yep.
So you've got millions of people who want to get their fix. So I think that they did a tremendous job threading that needle. They gave us iconic moments from the game with a little bit of a spin. So even people that watch the game were like, oh, that's interesting, but yet they've maintained fealty to the original subject matter. That's why they brought in Druckmann. It's going to be interesting to see, are Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann going to write all these episodes, or just the first and last, or whatever? I'm curious to see how
well, as the
pans out.
showrunner, even if they have other screenwriters, they're operating under their direction. So, right?
Well,
So-
of course, absolutely. But I'm just curious, like, sometimes you have a writer that'll write all the episodes.
Yep, sometimes. And directors that'll direct all the episodes. All right, what's next?
All right, Bert writes, Joel's PTSD when Ellie saw him kill for the first time.
Or right before he
Yeah.
killed. So, having that flashback to another soldier pointing a gun at him and a girl.
Yep.
That was a great moment to drop a quick flashback. And great that they didn't spend 30 seconds on the flashback. It was really just a quick image. Boom,
all
he
you
reacted.
needed.
Yep.
I found the dog, John. Right over here.
What's that?
Look, the dog.
He's so
Found
proud
him.
of himself.
Oh my God, is the dog out there?
Yeah, right here.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Ridiculous.
All right, what's next?
All
Sorry.
right. Also, with that thing too, is it establishes like the relationship building between the two.
Yeah, it does.
All right, Enzo the Baker writes, podcast said pilot was 2 episodes edited together. Episode 1 end, Joel tossing the kid's dead body into the pile. HBO not happy with it since it wasn't enough to hook. And I agree.
It was the right decision.
yeah,
it was absolutely
And
the
the
right
whole time
decision.
when I was watching the show, I was like, where are they going to cut this? Because I don't feel like non-gamers are going to be like hooked yet. And I'm glad.
Yeah.
So can we assume the rest of the episodes are less than an hour 20?
Yeah, they're probably going
yeah.
to be about 45 minutes, I'm guessing.
I would
Oh, that's
love
what
to
the
be an
40s.
executive in that room, seeing it for the first time and having an end where it ends, and be like, "We can't end this show here. We're putting a dead kid, burning him up."
And that's the
Cut to the credits.
I'll let you
Depeche Mode
guys
kicks in.
keep going. I got to run use the bathroom.
All right. Well, we only have 2 more questions here.
Oh, okay. Well, then I can.
All right. Johnny Got Lost writes, I love it. Hope this season knocks it out of the park so that people are complaining that characters aren't white, don't have any excuses as to why they don't like the cast. Cast is killing it. They'll still
They'll
like
still
it
find a way.
because
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
racist, and racist doesn't have any like reason or logic. So.
Here's the thing that I will never understand. I saw some complaining online. It's like Joel's daughter wasn't black or half black. And that's okay. Here's the thing.
Joel wasn't Hispanic, but
Here's the thing that gets me. Is be careful your innate racism is showing. Because if it was a white girl and her hair parted on the left instead of the right in the game, would you complain? No, but it's a physical difference. Well, it's not an important physical difference.
They
All
gave
right.
her long hair.
If the character in the game, I can't remember what the daughter in the game, whether she had blue eyes or not, but let's hear for argument's sake. She did. Okay, so the girl in the daughter in the game had blue eyes, and the actress still at least was a white girl, but had brown eyes. Would they complain and cry and bitch and moan because of that physical difference? No. Hey, the daughter was 5'3.5" in the game, but she's 5'4". The actress is 5'4". Are they going to complain about the physical difference? No. Oh, but fuck me. Her skin pigmentation's a little different than it is in the game. That changes everything! Oh my God, they're changing! Fucking racist. Just shut the fuck up and sit down, you ignorant moron. Yeah.
But you know what? Also, I think by casting who they cast, it made Joel an interesting person. Like I wonder if he met his wife overseas when he was fighting in Desert Storm. You never.
Or
know.
McDonald's.
Well, he could have, but maybe he met somebody on leave or something.
You can find out on DLC.
The paid DLC.
You have to buy that.
I just love the fact, the selective outrage about, oh, that physical difference is fine, that physical difference is fine, that physical, oh, wait a minute, the tone of her skin is different than, oh my God, what are they doing? They're changing everything. It's just so funny.
I just think it's easy to pick out who you should have conversations with if that's the reason for not liking the show, then you just talk to someone else.
Oh, exactly. It's
Yeah,
really
you're
great
not
when
going to change their
people-
mind.
I like when people let me know that they're a piece of shit right up front.
Yeah.
It saves me a lot of time.
It's not even worth thinking about, or because they're not going to change. So just enjoy the show yourself.
And
Yeah.
her performance is what matters, and
Exactly.
she killed
Oh,
it.
she killed it.
Crushing it.
I mean, she
And
might
you
have.
loved her. You loved
Yeah.
It
her.
was so good.
All right, next question.
All right, so we only got part two from Alex Wu or Vu, but they write. But on the other hand, what are they to do? Guess their work is to cut out for them. What do you guys think about this? Very keen to see the rest of the show either way. We have no idea.
Wow, no idea.
I kind of get where he's going there, but yeah, we don't know what you're.
Unfortunately, the first
Unfortunately,
part didn't come through.
And then we got support from Connie Singh and Jimmy Rudolphson.
Oh, hey, Connie.
Connie, what's up?
Well, I guess again, sorry that your first part didn't get through. Because with that being said, what? All right, guys, that'll do it for episode 1 of our Last of Us after show open spoiler discussion. Thank you so much for being here and joining us for this. I mean, this show is off to a killer start. I can only hope they are able to continue this momentum. Guys, what did you think about the show? What are your thoughts on the similarities of the game, where they took liberties, the performances, where you think they're going to go? How closely do you think they'll stick to the game as it progresses? Will they increase the liberties they take? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comments below and let us know your thoughts. By the way, big special thanks to you guys who sent in the super chats. Number one, because you gave us great observations and things to talk about when it comes to The Last of Us, but also you supported our channel as you did it, and all of us in the room here, thank you guys so much for that support. Guys, don't forget to come back and join us for tomorrow's installment of the John Campea Show. We got a Mandalorian trailer dropping apparently. Make sure you guys come and join us for that. So for myself, Robert Meyer Burnett, Chris Carr, Dog Love and Ray Ora. We got Jonathan Voico back there, and Taylor Gonzalez has been running the show. And until next time, my friends, bye-bye.